The Atlanta Story is a podcast highlighting Atlanta's most interesting creators, entrepreneurs, and builders. I'm JC Lucas with Atlanta Ventures and co-producer alongside Jon Birdsong. In today's episode, Jon sits down with founder and CEO of the Illumarium, Alan Greenberg. Alan is a serial entrepreneur who has started companies in media, healthcare, education, travel, and technology. The Illuminarium is all about democratizing human experiences and just opened the first of several locations last month right off the Beltline. Before this latest venture, Alan co-founded Avenues, the World School, sold a healthcare media company to WebMD, and was publisher of Esquire Magazine. In today's episode, Alan shares principles around starting successful businesses, what it was like being a publisher in the Mad Men era of advertising, sales strategies, and much more. We hope you enjoy the show and subscribe to the Atlanta Story.
Alan Greenberg, welcome to the Atlanta Story podcast. Thank you for being here.
Jon, great to be here with you.
You have an illustrious career ranging from media, internet, technologies, education, and it's all come to the climax with the Illuminarium, and which we want to get into a lot today. Let's start years ago. How did someone who, communications, University of Knoxville, Tennessee, gained so much leverage to be the publisher of Esquire in your early 30s?
Yeah, when I was actually in school, I started a little media company. We were selling, this was way pre-internet, but we were selling advertising on desk blotters and things like that. So I had an affinity and an interest in kind of advertising, selling advertising and so forth. But it was a little bit of luck. I joined a group of individuals who started a media company in Knoxville. We ended up buying Esquire Magazine, which was fortuitous. And I had a really unique opportunity to go up to New York to do what I really enjoy doing, which is selling. and that's really what a publisher does. He's really responsible, he or she is really responsible for the revenue side of the business.
Excellent. And this was New York of Gordon Gekko heyday, Bonfire of the Vanities, Tom Wolfe. I mean, this was Mad Men.
Yes,
this was Mad Men.
Yeah, it was a wonderful time to be in the publishing business. Much different today.
Yeah, would you, if someone came to you and today and asked you to be the publisher in a traditional print magazine, what would be your framework of saying yes or no?
Yeah, I think you'd be riding on the Titanic. So that's a tough business to be in unless you have a really robust, digital side. I read today, I think, that Meredith, as an example, one of the biggest publishing companies in the country, is now doing more revenue on the digital side than the print side. And that's a pretty remarkable thing if you look back 20, 30 years.
And so some of the lessons at Esquire, you were there for 6 years, maybe. If I read the 81 through 86, a
little longer than that, but
a little bit longer.
Maybe 8 years.
What are some of those lessons you learned as a publisher that you brought to the rest of your career?
Yeah, I think first of all, a lot of it's about team building. A lot of it's about being a talent scout. We were really tough about the people that we hired. To make sure that we had really the right group. So that's one piece of it. Secondly, you have to have a story. You have to have a positioning. And so we, in those days, positioned ourselves against the baby boomers. I'm one of those, now 70 years old. But at the time, that was the hottest market in the country, if not the world.
Yeah.
And we were able to position ourselves as kind of, the book.
Yep.
For the male side, for the most part of that generation.
Recruiting writers, recruiting all sorts of talent, anything to have that sort of voice. Is that fair? I mean, is that a
Well, there's really two sides. So there is the editorial side, and then there is the kind of advertising, marketing, revenue side. Those really have to exist in a very supportive way, and I think we were able to pull that off. We were, I think, when we started, we were selling 400 ad pages a year. When we sold Esquire to Hearst, we were doing 1,600 ad pages a year. So it's a big difference, but that only works if you have a great, in this case, a great magazine, and you do a pretty good job of this, telling that story to potential advertisers, et cetera.
Yeah. Last question about Esquire. So, University of Tennessee, how does a, back in the days of where pedigree is everything, how does a University of Tennessee Knoxville graduate gel with the culture of the Ivy elites in New York at a time where it seemed like it was, that is like the trading places days, of Wall Street and the likes?
Yeah, I think when it was initially announced that this group from the South was taking over this venerable kind of institution, which Esquire really had a great history, there was a lot of surprise and maybe a little disbelief in the very beginning. But, it's not hard to win people over with passion and smarts. And I think we were able to do that. And in many ways, I think the New York ad community wanted Esquire to succeed, didn't want it to die, wanted it to live on. And I think when they saw we were serious and committed, they really support us in many ways.
And this isn't the first time that you have had to build community around a new cause. The Avenues, the World Schools is a great example, which we will get to. But it's another example of coming in with a new, fresh leadership team, putting a vision together, and now building community around a vision. What are, for the entrepreneurs listening, how did you change that culture and that belief for let's start with just the community of writers, New Yorkers that were more or less a little surprised that this Southern entity came in and bought such an established media company. How did you, what were the actual things y'all did? Did you guys host happy hours and drinks and do more one-on-one building? What was the secret sauce to make that a reality?
Yeah, well, really, the first thing we did is we did build a team. So we built a team of great people. They weren't all Southerners, but they were well respected, and both on the editorial side and on the kind of the marketing distribution side of the business. And we did do a lot of events. Our favorite spot was the Four Seasons, and they had a great event space in those days. And we would bring the media there, meet them, and present to them our ideas. And those were, in some ways, big ideas. Example, in 1983, way before your time, we had our 50th anniversary, and we came up with kind of a big print idea called the 50 Who Made the Difference, going back over 50 years of Esquire, who were the 50 individuals who made the biggest difference in the world. And we sold that as a big print event, and it was one of the biggest magazines ever done in its time.
That is cool. Big ideas are no stranger to you. Based off of a lot of the things you've accomplished in your career, post Esquire, you went into Greenberg News Network, which evolved or was more healthcare news network. How did you make that transition? What were the decisions you made to go into that space?
Yes, so I wanted to create my own media company. We looked at a lot of different markets, a lot of different ideas. We had noticed in a previous life how successful we had been in targeting students, for example. And another big market was physicians, one of the biggest markets in the world in terms of, particularly in terms of pharma's interest in that market. So out of all that and a little bit of brainstorming came the idea of Medcast. And we built a news organization and a portal for physicians, kind of a Bloomberg for doctors.
Yeah.
And we're very fortunate again in timing in that
sold at 99.
Yeah, it was a great time to sell. We had something special and something that, for example, WebMD didn't have, which was a portal for physicians. They were really consumer focused. But this brought a lot of credibility, and I think we built one of the largest news organizations in medicine here in Atlanta. So it was really a perfect time to merge those companies together and go public.
When you say we were brainstorming, at Atlanta Ventures, one of the things we love is throwing up ideas on a wall, looking at markets. Who was we, and was it that more the more royal we, or question one? And then question two is, how do you decide, what frameworks did you use to decide on that market in particular, knowing that you could have gone in any scope?
Yeah, well, I had some experience in that market from my days in publishing in Knoxville. We had a couple media that were focused on physicians, so I knew a bit about the market. But those were pre-internet days. When we started Greenberg News and Medcast, it was in the early days of the internet, so we wanted to take advantage of that. So we put together a group that really had just a half dozen individuals that I had worked with before or that I knew of. Some experts in content, experts in design, experts in kind of the early days of the internet, in the creation of that technology.
Sure.
And those were days where we had to stream things in very slowly, just because the bandwidth wasn't there, so we had to work around that. But we did so pretty successfully.
Random tangent question around the way. So most publishers, I would say a lot of the publishers today are still trying to figure out the internet. You were on the forefront. What are things today that you do that keep you relevant in terms of technology, in terms of seeing what's ahead? Most recently with the Illuminarium, but how do you continually stay relevant in and seeing what's around the curve? Whether you're at Publisher at Esquire to early adoption of internet technology, now to premium digital experiences. Are you reading 4 hours a day? Are you watching YouTube? I mean, how do you?
Yeah. Honestly, in my case, it's all about surrounding myself with people who are experts. I'm not an expert on technology. I know enough to get around, but I'm not a technologist. I'm not an engineer. But I'm pretty good at finding people who are great. And in the case of Illuminarium, we very much did that. But all along, I've always been able to find fantastic chief technology officers. David Guthrie, for example, who you may know, who was really a star, and I think in the Hall of Fame of technology here in Atlanta or in Georgia, was our CTO, during those Medcast years. And we have similarly phenomenal people who are on the cutting edge of everything that's going on in technology, kind of at our disposal at Illuminarium as an example.
Sold Medcast to WebMD, moved, so that was 99, fast forward, .com, bubble, burst, but then you go into travel and internet technologies around travel. As when we talk to entrepreneurs, we always, we know that there's a long view ahead, right? The companies that they're starting today, they may sell in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and that there's going to be more. How did you decide from healthcare to travel technology and make that transition?
Yeah, sometimes opportunities find you, and you just have to be hopefully smart enough to determine is that where you want to play. So I had sold, Greenberg News. We had kind of cashed in. I was looking for a new opportunity, wanted to stay active, and kind of through just people I knew, I heard about this kind of failing.com called lastminutetravel.com. A lot of money had been invested in it, but it really hadn't gone anywhere. Looked like a super opportunity. And one of the things that I have focused on throughout my career are big markets, whether that is travel is one of the biggest businesses in every country in the world. And so that interested me a lot. So, that's why I dived in.
Easy enough, right? From Travel Holdings, that you're CEO to 2008, and that was coming out of the .com. Built the team here in Atlanta, or is that more kind of dispersed, or where was the...
The real key to our success at Travel Holdings is we pivoted from a B2C business to a B2B business. And we met some people that were who were buying hotel product around the world, selling it around the world. They had just kind of gotten started themselves, but they were very smart. And we made the decision to merge with that company, which was headquartered in Orlando. It was actually a group of Israelis. We had a big tech group in outside of Tel Aviv and who were very talented. And we really flipped the business to I would say about 90% really a B2B business, and we expanded it. We raised capital and expanded it around the world.
Today, there's this merging of kind of investor operator. We're seeing that even more so on all over the place with whether it's AngelList to folks putting together SPACs while holding a full-time job. It seems like you're someone that's always been driven by just building and creating. How have you been able to wear hats of operating, building businesses, but also investing in deals outside of your main core daily workflow?
Yeah. Listen, for the most part, I invest in my own businesses. That's really 90% of what I do. Other little things that I do are just, an opportunity arises and you go, I'm going to put some capital against that, and I'm not going to control it.
Yeah.
But for the most part, at least for me,
sure.
I've been more successful at putting my personal capital against businesses that I'm involved in.
Makes sense. So after Travel Holdings, again, I know we talked about this on the way up on the elevator, but there's just so many chapters to your novel. But you decided to go into education, created a global network of schools, avenues, the World School, Brazil, China, the U.S., New York, Shenzhen, and Sao Paulo. Did that opportunity find you, or did you find that one?
A little bit of both. I had some friends, some people I've been in business with previously who really had the idea of creating a global school. They hadn't done it. But I was playing golf with these guys up in I think in East Hampton, and the idea came up, and they said, "Hey, would you like to join with us in creating a global school?" Didn't have a name at the time, but it sounded like a phenomenal idea. It sounded like an idea whose time has come, and again, one of the biggest markets in the world. And it's one of those opportunities, you can really do well, and you can really do a lot of good in that world. So it appealed to me on a lot of fronts. So I, went back up to New York.
Yeah, I was about to say, were there any similarities of, packing up and going back up to New York and
a little bit, and that was of course great. And to be able to build a brand in New York City is a lot of fun.
And so, the Avenue School, New York. Give us the 30-second pitch on the Avenue School.
Yeah, so Avenues is it's really all about giving your children an opportunity for a global education. If you came to Avenues with a 3-year-old, the first question we would ask is, well, do you want to be in the Mandarin track or the Spanish track? And for the next 10 years, half of your classes are going to be in either Mandarin or Spanish. So we're not teaching you Mandarin. You're going to school in Mandarin, so to speak. So it's really a language immersion school. It's also, in essence, a global school. So a student in New York can study in Sao Paulo, can study in Shenzhen, and vice versa. But that's really what it was all about.
Yeah. And we're going to take a quick break here and share that this podcast is brought to you by Atlanta Ventures. If you are looking to start the next $300 million business out of Atlanta, check out the studio at atlantaventures.com. After that, I'm sure there were lots of thoughts about hanging your jersey up on the rafter and calling it a day. But now we are seeing some of the best work through the Illumarium, and just talk to us about the idea to. What opened last month on the Beltline, and how the decision process around why you decided to build another company, why the Illuminarium, and why the Beltline. Yeah.
So, I just finished launching Avenue Sao Paulo, which was so much fun.
Yeah.
And I think it was the largest school ever to open in the Southern Hemisphere, so it was a big success. I wanted to do one more company. I know enough to know that if I just stopped, I really wouldn't be happy. So I wanted to do something really interesting, and started to look around, and really through a mutual friend, met the gentlemen today who are my partners in Avenues, the CEO of
Illuminarium. Yep.
Yeah, excuse me, on Illuminarium. Yeah, so met them. They had this was John Kamen, the CEO of Radical Media. Radical Media is one of the great content production companies in the world. If you saw Hamilton on Disney, you saw them. If you saw Summer of Soul, which is one Sundance, that's Radical Media work, et cetera. And then and they're on the content side. And then on the design side, David Rockwell and the Rockwell Group. And again, if you've been in any Nobu or Taos, or David's just done everything. Just did the Academy Award set in Union Station 2 months ago, and so forth. So he's really a star in that world. They had been fooling around with kind of an idea in the experiential space. I was introduced to them. I said, I think there's something there. Let me work on it. And I'll come back to you. And if I think we can build a company out of this, then we'll figure out how to split up the equity, and I'll take it on. And out of that came Illuminarium.
And so on that ideation process, when you see this technology and now you're trying to package it up in ways that make it commercially viable. What are some of the things you're thinking about in terms of all the lessons that you've learned? Because the Illuminarium, to me, it's education, it's content, it's a lot of location and real estate. I mean, this is bringing in so many facets of your career. When you saw that technology and then wanted to package it up in a way that was commercially viable, what was the process you went through?
Yeah. By the way, the word we use is edutainment. That's really what Illuminarium is all about. But so it really was trying to use as many skills as and as many experiences I've had. Real estate is part of that, and I'd spent a lot of time looking for real estate for avenues all over the world. That was really part of my role. But like anything, you have to build a business plan. You have to determine, can this really be something that captures people's attention? Can it be distinctive? Distinction is critical to a company's success. So we started to look at everything that was out there. So we visited a lot of the great experiences. Atelier Luminaire in Paris, which was, by the way, where Van Gogh, which has become so popular all over the country, that those are knockoffs of Atelier Luminaire. Team Lab in Tokyo, Meow Wolf in Santa Fe, looked at things like Titanic and bodies and all these things. And then out of that, try to determine how can we create a really interesting business here. And Illuminarium kind of developed.
Yeah.
We didn't want it to be a pop-up. We wanted it to be a permanent entertainment, education, cultural icon in every city that we went into. And it did start in Atlanta. And both in terms of this is our HQ and this is our first Illuminarium. We didn't expect Atlanta to be our first Illuminarium. We thought we would open in New York City first. But when we saw the site here and when we took a look at the economics, we said, let's open here on the Beltline.
On the Illuminarium front, I feel like there's key user flows and user experiences. You've got probably middle of the day, more education, kids. And then, you open up at 9 and close at 11 or midnight, correct?
Depending on the night of the week. We have both in essence, a daytime experience that goes up to early evening. And then we can flip a switch because of our technology and completely transform our venue into kind of the coolest bar in town. Perfect for you, John.
Yeah, I love it. So being 6 weeks in, how are you getting that feedback from the users and then adapting to those experiences, right? Have you had to make any changes in terms of like, all right, well, we're gonna keep the education piece open till 6 and then do the bar at 7 to.
It's not really so much an education piece. What we do, our main business is what we call spectacles. And spectacles are somewhat, think of us as a digital version of Cirque du Soleil.
Okay.
So instead of having those 150 performers and jugglers, et cetera, we do everything digitally. And what we try to do, our mission really is to democratize extraordinary experiences. So we try to, in our spectacles, do things that people dream about. Our first spectacle is a safari experience. It's a $10 million production. We sent film crews to Africa, came back, did very, very sophisticated post-production, sound design, and so forth. And combined with our technology, you kind of feel like you are there. You are in Africa. I'm pretty sure 98% of the people driving down Piedmont Road here have never been on safari, but I'm also pretty sure 98% of them wish they could. So that's an example of us democratizing an amazing experience, a bucket list kind of experience.
What are some of the ones on the roadmap, knowing that, what are some of the ones?
Yeah, we have quite a few. So we're now in production of our second big spectacle. It's called Spacewalk. And you'll go to the moon. You'll walk on the surface of the moon. You'll actually leave footsteps on the surface of the moon through our LiDAR technology, that interactive technology. So, when you walk into Illuminarium, you see things at scale. Again, you see those elephants, or you'll see the rover on the moon at scale. You hear it through an extraordinary sound system, a 3D beamforming sound that comes from a company called Holoplot out of Berlin. You feel things. You can feel the rumble, whether that's a spacecraft taking off or an elephant walking by, through a haptic system in our floors that gives you that low-frequency effect. We have a sense system for smell, and then we have a LiDAR system that gives us both the ability to track our customers as well as gives us all this interactivity. So you can leave footprints as you're walking down a path and so forth.
And how long will each experience be there, right? So will the African experience still be available once the spacewalk comes in?
That's a great question. The business model is every 6 to 8 months, we bring out a new big spectacle.
Okay.
But when we bring Spacewalk to Atlanta, we may decide that 2 days a week we continue to run Safari. We're pretty sure the more content we have, the better we're going to do. And when we open, let's say in London in 3 years, maybe we'll have 10 spectacles in our quiver. And we don't know enough today to know exactly how we'll use those. But my guess is, again, having more opportunities, we're going to bring more people in.
And Atlanta started out, Miami's coming, I read Las Vegas. Do we have locations in Miami and Las Vegas?
Yeah, so Las Vegas is about to open. I was there last week. We're under roof, under construction. We opened December 17th. 33,000 square foot build-to-suit Illuminarium is going to be phenomenal. Where is it? It's in this great new development called Area 15. It's the biggest new thing going on in Vegas, a 50-acre development by Fisher Brothers out of New York. And we're neighbors there with the Meow Wolf, which is this amazing experiential art experience. It's killing it there. It's sold out a month in advance. And then another company out of LA called Lost Spirits. So between Illuminarium, Lost Spirits, and Meow Wolf, and 20 other things you can do at Area 15, it's going to be a big hit. We've signed our lease in Miami in the Wynwood Arts District there. We've designed our Illuminarium. We're just about to submit our plans to the city. You have to go through a pretty lengthy entitlement process. But maybe our best location of all is going to be Chicago. About 2 weeks ago, we were unanimously approved by the City Council of Chicago to bring Illuminarium to Navy Pier. Navy Pier is the largest tourism destination in the Midwestern United States. Pre-COVID, about 10 million people a year go to Navy Pier. We share a wall there with the Children's Museum of Chicago. It's going to be just an amazing location for us.
That is really exciting. What's the team look like right now? Kind of at the Illuminarium? How many employees? So going back, there are really 4 main partners. There's yours truly, kind of the management team. There's Radical Media, which is our content arm. There's Rockwell Group, which is our design arm. And then we have an operational arm, which is run by Legends. Legends operates, they're owned by the Steinbrenner family, the Jones family, and Sixth Street Capital. A major like Jerry
firm.
Jones of the...
Yes.
Okay.
And Legends operates about 150 venues. By the way, they operate Georgia Tech Stadium. They operate, obviously, they operate Yankee Stadium. Yeah. Every Live Nation venue in the United States. They do Wimbledon. They do Real Madrid Stadium. So they're experts in operations. So we brought them on to really operate our venues. So most of the employees in Atlanta are really Legends employees. They're you would think of them as Illuminarium employees, but Legends really brings that operational expertise to the party.
Let's talk. Let's talk about fundraising. And you've done so much fundraising over your career, whether it's been Avenues, Travel Holdings, Illuminarium. For the entrepreneurs who are raising right now, any words of wisdom on just how to successfully raise money?
Yeah, it's a lot of hard work. Listen, you have to have a distinctive idea backed by people with the experience to bring that idea to life successfully. And you have to have a really solid, rock solid business plan with reasonable assumptions that people believe can be met. So we've raised $120 million on an idea.
That is remarkable.
We raise every penny pre-revenue. And then our last raise was approaching a $300 million post-money valuation with a company that didn't exist in terms of its reality. But it's a big idea. It's got extraordinary partners and operators, and a very wonderful, again, extraordinary CFO, COO, a gentleman named Chris Renaud, who's really been at my side from the beginning of Illuminarium. And that's really important in raising capital because, people are going to look at me and go, yeah, he's got the vision, but they're going to care a lot about the operations, a lot about the finances and the financial plans and the realism of those.
The Atlanta Ventures, we love sales. We love obviously Sales Loft is a big story of Atlanta Ventures. For the sales rep at Sales Loft who's listening to this podcast, what are just some of the overall sales nuggets you've got over the years? Because as you mentioned, starting out, you love sales. You're a natural storyteller. Any words of wisdom on just selling?
Oh man, there's a lot. Well, listen, I think you have to get people obviously interested and excited by giving them a sense of the market that you're entering, and because that's really important that they understand that market and they understand the vitality of it. I think you make a really deep presentation on the market, on your product, on why it's distinctive, and show them a plan that really makes sense. And then you really follow that up. For me, I try to think through every possible objection before I create a sales presentation. What is going to keep someone from investing or keep someone from buying? Literally write all those down and go, okay, how are we going to solve that? Because people are going to ask, well, what about technology? How are you not going to be obsolete in 4 years? So you have to have a really great answer for that.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
That's really
So
good.
whatever you can think through, what are those objections going to be? And if you've got an answer to all those, you're going to do pretty well.
I love that. A couple more things. I know we're coming up on time. Over the years, it seems like you talk about building a team and developing relationships. It's from what I've heard, it seems like over the years you've collected not only friends but also potential investors, throughout each stage of your entrepreneurial journey. How has that has that been a conscious thing that you've done over the years of building these waves of networks to for future ventures and also attracting deals to is that been?
Yeah, it's listen. It's going back to what I just said. So let's imagine that you're a young family in New York City and you want to choose a school, and you have a choice of a school that's been around for 50 years, that's been sending a lot of kids to the Ivies, or this brand new school. Naturally, you're going to think it's going to be so hard to be a new school in a city like New York. But if that school is run by the people who used to run Exeter and used to run Hotchkiss and used to run Dalton and used to run the 92nd Street Y nursery school, et cetera, then you go, what those people have done, the only thing they've done for the last 30, 20 years, et cetera, is run the best schools in the world. So probably this is going to be a pretty good school, and I'll take that risk. So it's just an example of knowing you're going to have that hurdle and figuring out what kind of team do you have to create to do that. Same is exactly true of Illuminarium. People are going, who's going to do the content? The best people in the world. Who's going to do the design? The best people in the world. Who's going to operate this? Some of the best people in the world. And people go, wow, that's pretty incredible. So if I was starting a company to another one, which I don't think I will be, I would start just from that same perspective. Who can be the best that can really say to an investor, give that investor confidence that this is not just an idea. This is going to be something that's really special, and it's going to happen.
Well, we've been big admirers of you and just how big you think out of the Atlanta Ventures community, and you have such a you think really big, and that's always inspiring. Last question for all folks on the Atlanta Story podcast: why Atlanta, and what has Atlanta done for you? I mean, you obviously built businesses in New York, Miami, Las Vegas. Why Atlanta?
Yeah, well, listen, in terms of this latest business, I thought it'd be a good place to be if I wanted to see my grandchildren grow up. So that's one of the reasons that it's Atlanta. And I think we're just really fortunate that we can not only HQ here, but we can have the world's first Illuminarium here. We take a lot of pride in that. Atlanta has a lot to offer in terms of talent, in terms of connectivity to the world, and so forth.
Wonderful. Alan Greenberg, thank you so much for coming on the Atlanta Story podcast. We really appreciate you being part of the Atlanta Story.
Thank you, John. Really a pleasure.
This podcast is brought to you by Atlanta Ventures. It was co-produced by JC Lucas and Jon Birdsong. If you are looking to start the next $300 million business in Atlanta, check out the studio at atlantaventures.com and the companies we work with who've done it before. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, please share it at your next coffee meeting or dinner greeting, rate it, and write a benevolent, eloquent review.